You have asked this question, maybe out loud, maybe only in the silence of your own heart, maybe in the middle of a night when the pain was too loud to ignore. You have asked it with anger, or with grief, or with the exhausted resignation of someone who has asked it so many times that the asking itself has become a kind of pain. Why? Why does God allow this? If He is good, why does He permit suffering? If He loves me, why does He not stop what is hurting me, but a real one? So today, we are going to sit with this question honestly. We are not going to pretend the pain is smaller than it is. We are not going to offer you theology that sounds beautiful but does not reach the place where you are actually hurting. We are going to go where Augustine of Hippo went, a man who knew pain intimately, personally, specifically, and we are going to ask together what God is doing in the places that hurt the most. But first, let us stay with the pain for a moment, because it deserves that. Whatever you are carrying right now, the loss, the illness, the relationship that broke, the dream that died, the betrayal that changed the way you see people, the grief that has not lifted no matter how long you have waited for it to lift, it is real, it is not small. It is not something to be minimized with the right spiritual phrase. It is not evidence of weak faith that you are still hurting. It is evidence that you are human, and God made you human, and He does not ask you to be less than what He made. Psalm 34:18 says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." Not distant from the brokenhearted, close. The pain does not push Him away, it draws Him near. He is not watching your suffering from a comfortable distance, waiting for you to work through it before He will engage. He is in it, with you, present, attentive, moved by what moves you. Augustine knew this not as theology, but as experience. He lost his closest friend to sudden illness when both men were young. He described the grief as almost unbearable, a darkness that covered everything, a pain so specific and so deep that the world itself seemed changed by it. He wrote that he had poured his soul into that friendship in a way that, when his friend died, left him feeling as though half of himself had been taken. He wept. He could not stay in the city where they had been together because every familiar place was full of the absence. This was not a crisis of weak faith. This was a man of deep faith, in genuine pain. And what he discovered in that pain, not immediately, not easily, but truly, was that God was not absent from it. God was in it, working in it, present in the grief in a way He had not been present in the easy seasons, because the grief had broken open places in Augustine that the easy seasons had left closed. He would say to you, the pain is not proof that God has left. Sometimes it is the very place He is most present. Now let us speak about what the pain is not, because there are lies that attach themselves to suffering, and those lies do their own damage on top of the damage the pain already does. The pain is not punishment. This needs to be said clearly and firmly, because the enemy of your soul is very good at whispering the opposite. When something goes wrong, when the diagnosis comes, when the relationship ends, when the loss arrives, there is a voice that says, "This is what you get. This is God settling a score. This is the consequence of who you are and what you have done." This is a lie. John 9 records a moment when Jesus was asked directly about a man born blind. Who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? The disciples assumed the suffering had a guilty party. Someone must have done something to deserve this. And Jesus answered them, "Neither this man nor his parents sinned. This happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him." The suffering was not punishment. It was a platform, not for the man's shame, but for God's glory. Not as a verdict on his past, but as a vehicle for something that was coming. Your pain is not a verdict on your past, dear soul. It is not God settling a score. It is not what you get for your failures. The God who sent His own Son into suffering, not to observe it from a distance, but to enter it, to live inside it, to die inside it. That God does not use pain as a tool of punishment for those He loves. The pain is also not abandonment. It does not mean God has stepped back. It does not mean He has decided your case is too complicated, or your need too great, or your history too messy for His continued attention. The feeling of abandonment in suffering is real, but the fact of abandonment is not. There is a difference between the feeling and the reality. And in this case, the feeling lies. Romans 8:38 and 39 is perhaps the most comprehensive promise in all of Scripture. Nothing, not death, not life, not angels, not demons, not the present, not the future, not any power, not height, not depth, not anything in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God in Christ Jesus. Not the pain, not the loss, not the specific grinding, particular suffering you are carrying right now. Nothing. He has not left. He will not leave. The pain does not change this. So if the pain is not punishment, if it is not abandonment, then what is it? This is the question Augustine spent years wrestling with, and the answer he arrived at, hard-won, costly, genuinely believed, is this: pain, in the hands of God, is a tool of transformation, not because pain is good in itself, but because God is the kind of God who takes what is not good and works within it until something genuinely good emerges from it. Romans 8:28 does not say that all things are good. It says that God works all things together for the good of those who love Him. The things themselves are not all good. Some of them are genuinely terrible, but the God who is moving within the terrible things, bending them toward purpose, extracting from them something that could not have come any other way, the working is good. He is good, and His goodness is stronger than the badness of the thing He is working within. Augustine came to understand pain as the chisel in the hands of a sculptor. A chisel hurts the stone. It removes things. It changes the shape of what was there before. And if the stone could feel, it would perhaps protest the chisel, wonder why this is happening, why the comfortable shape it had is being removed, why the sculptor cannot simply leave things as they were. But the sculptor sees what the stone cannot see. The sculptor sees what is inside the stone, the form that is waiting to emerge. And the chisel is not destroying the stone, it is revealing it. What is God revealing in you through this pain? This is not a comfortable question, it is the right one. What is being formed in you in this season that could only be formed here? What capacity for compassion? What depth of faith? What quality of character is being developed in the fire that could not have been developed in the comfort? What are you learning about God in this place of need that you simply could not have learned in abundance? These questions do not minimize the pain. They do not tell you the pain is fine because something good will come from it. The pain is still pain. The loss is still loss. The grief is still grief. But they invite you to look for the work that is happening within the pain, to watch for what God is doing in the places that hurt most. Augustine lost his mother, Monica, after she had spent decades praying for him, after she finally saw the answer to those prayers, after she lived to see her son become the man she had always believed he could be. The grief was enormous, and yet he wrote of her death not only as loss but as completion, as the closing of a chapter that had been full of grace, as a grief that, in its very depth, was testimony to a love that had been real and transforming and costly in the best possible way. The pain that goes deepest is often the pain that testifies to a love that went deepest. The grief that will not lift quickly is sometimes the truest measure of what was real. And now, let me speak to the question that is underneath all the others, the one that is perhaps the hardest to ask out loud, but that many of you are carrying. What if the pain is still here? What if it has not resolved, has not produced visible fruit, has not yet shown you what it was for? What if you are still in the middle of it, with no view of the other side, and the question is not how to understand past pain, but how to survive present pain? For this, Augustine would say something very simple. And it is this: you do not have to understand it in order to survive it. You do not have to have the theological framework fully in place before the grace shows up. You do not have to reach peace before peace is allowed to reach you. You only have to do one thing: stay turned toward God, not with perfect faith, not with resolved questions, not with a heart that has finished grieving and moved on to acceptance. Just turned, facing in His direction, bringing the pain to Him honestly, the anger, the confusion, that this doesn't make sense, the where are you, and trusting, however thinly and however imperfectly, that He receives it, that He is present in the receiving, that the God who entered human suffering in the person of His Son is not put off by yours. He is not put off by yours, dear soul. He has been in pain. He knows what it feels like from the inside. And He does not watch yours from a comfortable distance. He is in it with you. Stay turned toward Him. That is enough. That has always been enough. Tell us in the comments, what has pain taught you that nothing else could have? Your testimony is not just for you. It is for someone else who is still in the middle of their suffering and needs to hear that it is not purposeless. And if these words have reached something real in you, subscribe and stay with us. Come back next week. Bring someone who is hurting and needs to hear that their pain is not the final word. Go in peace, dear soul, and know that the pain is not wasted, not one drop of it. Before we close, there is something that Augustine would insist we say about the community dimension of pain. Because suffering in isolation is one of the most dangerous things a human soul can do. And yet, it is one of the most common responses to pain, to pull back, to go quiet, to decide that the burden is too specific or too heavy or too shameful to bring into the presence of others. The enemy loves this. He loves nothing more than a suffering soul that has convinced itself it is uniquely broken, that its particular pain is too dark, or too complicated, or too far outside the range of normal human experience to be shared. Because a soul in isolation with its pain is a soul with no witnesses, no accountability, no one to speak truth when the pain starts to lie. And pain does lie. It lies about how long it will last. It lies about what it means. It lies about whether God is present. It lies about whether anyone would understand if you told them. It lies about your worth, your future, your capacity to survive this season. And the lie gets louder the longer you are alone with it. Augustine understood the healing power of genuine community in the face of suffering. He wrote of the friends who sat with him in his grief after losing his closest companion, not solving it, not explaining it away, but simply present in it with him. And he wrote of how that presence mattered, how the grief was still grief, but it was grief that was shared rather than grief that was carried alone. And the difference was real. You were not designed to suffer alone, dear soul. You were made for the kind of community where pain can be named and held and prayed over, where the person across from you has also hurt and has not been destroyed by their own honesty, where the light gets let in and the lie that you are uniquely broken begins to lose its power, simply by being spoken in the presence of someone who says, I have been there too. Find that person, make that call, say the honest thing to someone who is safe enough to receive it, not to perform your vulnerability, not to unburden yourself onto someone who cannot hold it, but to bring what you are carrying into the light, where it cannot fester. And if you do not currently have that kind of community, if the season of pain has also been a season of isolation, bring this before God. Ask Him specifically for the people who can hold this with you. This is a prayer He answers, because He created community for exactly this purpose, and He does not design the need and withhold the supply. Now let us speak about something that perhaps needs to be said directly, because it touches a specific kind of pain that many people carry and rarely name. Some of you are not asking, why does God allow pain in general? You are asking something more specific. You are asking, why did God allow this specific thing to happen to me? The thing that happened in your childhood, the thing that was done to you by someone who should have protected you, the thing that was not your fault, that you did not choose, that left a mark that has not fully healed. This pain deserves specific attention, because the lie that attaches to this kind of suffering is particularly cruel. It says, if God loved you, He would have stopped this. The fact that He did not stop it means either He could not, or He did not care. Neither is true. God does not author evil. He does not design harm. He does not orchestrate abuse or betrayal or the cruelty of one person toward another. These things come from the brokenness of a world that is not yet fully redeemed, from the choices of people who were made for love and chose something else. And God, who gave human beings genuine freedom, permits those choices even when they cause terrible damage. But He does not leave the damage unredeemed. He does not look at what was done to you and say, this is outside my reach. Nothing is outside His reach. Nothing. Not the wound that goes back the furthest. Not the thing that happened before you had any say in it. Not the pain that has shaped you in ways you are still discovering. He is a Redeemer, by nature. It is what He is. And the specific, personal, targeted work of redemption He is committed to doing in your life includes the wounds you did not choose, and the damage you did not deserve. It will not look like the wound never happened. Redemption does not erase, it transforms. It takes what was meant for destruction and turns it toward purpose. It takes the thing that broke something in you and uses the breaking to create a capacity for compassion, for understanding, for reaching other people who have been broken in the same way that could not have existed without the wound. This is not a comfortable truth. It does not make the wound acceptable. It does not excuse what was done. But it is real. And for the person who has been carrying a wound they did not choose for a very long time, the reality that God can transform even that is not nothing. It is everything. Augustine's own story is a testimony to this. The wounds of his early life, the patterns established in him through years of searching in the wrong places, the damage done by a life organized around the wrong loves. None of it disqualified him from the purpose God had for him. All of it was folded into the story. All of it became part of the testimony that has reached millions of people across 16 centuries. The very places where he was most broken became the places where his words carried the most weight, because people could hear in them the voice of someone who had genuinely been there. Your wounds are not your disqualification. They may be your assignment. The place where you hurt most may be the place where God most wants to work through you. The pain that has shaped you most deeply may be the very thing that equips you to reach someone else in the same dark place and say, I know, I have been here, and God was here too, and He will be here for you. This is what pain, redeemed, becomes. Not something to be ashamed of, not something to hide. A testimony, a light in the dark places that you can only carry because you have been in the dark yourself. So, dear soul, the pain is not wasted, not the old pain, not the fresh pain, not the pain you understand, and not the pain you cannot yet make sense of. None of it is wasted. God is a Redeemer. He is working. He has not stepped back from your life because it contains suffering. He has stepped into the suffering as He always has, as He always does, because this is who He is. And the day is coming, perhaps sooner than you think, perhaps not as soon as you would wish, but coming, when you will look back at this season of pain and see what was being built in it, see what could not have been built any other way, see the depth that only comes from having been in the deep. Hold on, dear soul. The pain is not the end of the story. It is part of what makes the story worth telling. Go in peace, and know that not one drop of what you have suffered is wasted.